Well, this guy will need no introduction. Matt Dubber, AirArms, Hunting South Africa, Element Optics,
Yeah.
FX. Probably one of the biggest names on YouTube now.
Well, let me firstly say that it's a pleasure to finally meet you. We've been chatting for kind of years on and off. I was last in the UK in 2015 and we never got a chance to meet up. I've been wanting to come to British Shooting Show for years and finally got back, so it's great to be here.
I didn't know he was coming. I sort of probably tried to get him out to one of the farms.
Yeah.
What's the plans for the future, Matt? As in adventures and trips? Like you've got a new truck or so in the last couple of years.
Yeah. So especially with the whole COVID thing hitting, I've realised, hey, you know, I've always enjoyed traveling around the world and experiencing different cultures, but there's so much to see in my own country, so I kind of made a point of, okay, let's go out and go to places in my own country where I wouldn't normally go.
Yeah.
And I had the opportunity to hunt in some cool places, and with the truck being set up, I can kind of camp wherever I want now, which is great. I don't have to like bother the farmer and find a place to stay and all of that.
Yeah.
But now that international travel is opening up, I'm keen to maybe, like, a few years ago I did that trip to Patagonia, and that was such a cool adventure, and like just exploring. I mean, let's be honest, shooting and hunting is just an excuse to go visit a new place. Actually, it's an excuse to experience a new culture and everything. So I might just do like a US tour and go to different states in the US and experience different, you know, maybe shoot some iguanas and, you know, stuff that you'd never normally get to do. But as for specific plans, I'm kind of taking it as it comes. You never really know what's going to happen with travel restrictions and all that rubbish.
Yeah.
So I'm just enjoying being spontaneous. Even coming here was a last minute decision. And as you know, you've also been doing a lot of traveling.
Yeah.
Sometimes spontaneity is the most exciting way of doing it.
Yeah, we've done something similar, because I bought a van and converted it just so I can get around my country.
Oh, nice.
And stop anywhere. So yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. The freedom you have from that is great. I think freedom to not have to find a place to. Well, for me, I've got a shower in my vehicle now, so I can have a hot shower in the middle of winter, and that's great to not have to pay for expensive accommodation in the middle of nowhere.
You've one up me.
Yeah.
I have to stick with rivers and lakes.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, I mean, our weather's probably a little bit less severe than yours, so you probably wouldn't want to camp in the dead of winter outdoors anyway. So
no, definitely. Yeah. Matt, we're here at the stand, and we've got one of these new Element scopes you've been heavily involved with. Just tell us a little bit about it. Yeah,
Element Optics is a relatively new venture for me, in that my focus for many years, as you know, has been kind of YouTube, and I've been hunting, working with brands like originally AirArms, and then done a lot with FX over the last few years, and just enjoyed being able to travel around, hunt in different countries, go to trade shows and everything. But I've always been very interested in product development and trying to like work on something and bring it to the market. And the opportunity came up a few years ago to, you know, I've done a bit of on and off work with optics companies in the past, and worked on designing reticles and things for a few different optics companies. But when the opportunity came up to kind of start something from scratch, and got a really good investment, and basically like being able to rope in Shane Keller and guys like that, Ted Beer, and design something that's new, we jumped on that. And Element Optics was born probably, I think we started 3 or 4 years ago, and then launched early 2020, which is probably the worst time to launch a company ever. But yeah, brought a few models. We had the Helix, which is sort of the more entry-level model, Titan, which is sort of mid-range, and the Nexus, which is really top-end. And recently brought something like, this is the 4 to 16 Helix, which is a new magnification range.
So the Helix would be something ideal to go on like the sub 12 foot-pound.
Exactly, and the Helix is, I think it's really well suited, you know, especially if you're looking at airgun scopes, because an airgun scope, firstly, you've got that loopy trajectory that you have to account for. So whether you're using a reticle or dialing, you've got to account for that. And so at the end of the day, it's the equivalent of shooting out to 500 plus meters with a firearm.
Yeah.
And you can't just have a super simple scope that doesn't track well and doesn't have any reticle markings. You kind of have to think about things that you wouldn't have to think about shooting a deer at 150 yards with a firearm.
And for those that don't know, tracking is how well the reticle moves.
Yes.
For one click is always the same. One click's always one click.
Exactly. So yeah, there's a number of ways you can account for pellet drop or bullet drop. One is to use the reticle itself and count your holdover markings, whether it's like milliradians or MOA, or using those units to estimate where your pellet's going to end up. And the other way is to actually dial for it. And a lot of people will just use their turrets to zero their rifle scope, but we've seen the industry change a lot in the last few years, where more and more people are wanting to dial so that they don't have to count in their head how many holdover marks they're using. So our whole philosophy is built on the fact that a precision rifle scope, if it's not precise, then it's not a precision rifle scope. So even on a sort of budget line like the Helix, everything inside has to track perfectly and work perfectly and hold zero and return to zero perfectly. Otherwise there's no point in marketing it as a precision rifle scope. So that's kind of the whole philosophy around this. And it's not necessarily an airgun scope. It's designed first and foremost for firearms, but we've obviously made it that it parallaxes down to 15 yards, so it can be used for anything basically.
Yeah. Perfect. And I mean that's pretty much the same as most scopes. And if you want to see closer, just wind the mag down and make do, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, exactly. This particular model is first focal plane. We only do one second focal plane scope, so the difference is second focal plane. Your reticle, no matter what you do to magnification, the reticle appears to be the same, which a lot of people prefer, especially for hunting and stuff, because your reticle thickness doesn't change. Whereas a first focal plane scope, the reticle changes thickness with as you change the magnification, and that can kind of affect the thickness as well. But we do offer both, and we feel it's important to offer both because there are really so many different shooting applications and so many different demands. One thing we've learned is like you're never going to make everyone happy.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, thanks very much, Matt.
Cool, pleasure.
It's been great chatting to you.
You too.
And
keep well.
Hopefully we can put a few pellets into something in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I do intend to come back here more regularly. I've got a 5-year UK visa, which means I can come whenever I want now.
Yeah.
So maybe next year we'll plan something.
Lovely.
It'll be quite fun.
Lovely. I mean, yeah, that'd be brilliant.
Cool.
Cheers, Matt.
Great.
See you in a bit.
Keep well.
Thank you.